And to do this, we have PR and social media consultant Ria Freeman. So welcome, Ria, to the stage.
Well, hello there. That was an exciting show reel. I've changed my hair colour since then, so that's exciting too. I am just going to make sure, here we go, I've got my slides now. So we're going to talk today all about how to engage your customers through Instagram stories. I adore Instagram stories and I can't wait to deliver this session to you. So first of all, a huge hello. What I would really love you to do, if you don't mind, as we go through, is if you've got any questions at all, I would love you to ask them. So there are plenty of opportunities for you to ask them in the chat box. And at the end, we will answer them for you. So my name's Ria Freeman, as I've said before, and I am a PR and small business consultant. I help small businesses and brands to promote themselves better on a budget, which is a bit of a mouthful. But I know when we're kind of thinking about what we kind of do, that very much encapsulates what I'm all about. I host a weekly podcast called the Small and Supercharged Podcast, which talks about a variety of different subjects, usually around the PR, marketing, social media and small business theme. And I also speak to amazing guests. I run 3 Facebook groups. One is a free one called Small and Supercharged, which I will kindly warmly extend, invitation for you to come and join if you'd like to, and 2 are membership groups. And I'm also a She Means Business accredited trainer. This is a system that's run by Enterprise Nation and powered by Facebook and helps to get ladies, particularly using social media better. I've also given a couple of TEDx talks around social media. So just so you know, I'm talking to you from a place of knowledge, not just, just dropped in for the day. By the end of this workshop, you should have loads of ideas to engage your customers through Instagram stories, whether you're doing it for your own business or whether you are doing it for businesses that you work with and encouraging them to as well. You should feel confident in how to do this too. And you should be eager, hopefully, to have a go and start experimenting with what you have learned. So, as I said, I would really encourage your comments, your questions as we go through this. I would love to help you specifically with your questions and queries as well. I know I much prefer an interactive workshop, and that's what we're doing today. So, really, I wanted to say before we get started is why I am slightly obsessed with Instagram stories and why I'm so passionate about teaching about them and also how to help you engage your customers and your customers' customers better with them. So not all that long ago, I was the person that when anyone got out a camera, I would look for the largest object to hide behind. And being 6 foot tall, that's not an easy task sometimes. I hated having my photograph taken. I hated having video taken. I hated all of it. And that's just not me saying it so you go, oh, bless you. Genuinely, I'd find objects to hide behind. But through my increased use of social media, through my increased use of Instagram stories particularly, I realised that actually the best way to connect with people is by getting your face out there. We as people connect with people. And the more I got my face out there, the more people I connected with, and the better that was for my business. And more than that, the better it actually is for your clients' businesses too. Especially in the more virtual world we live in, if you can make those connections, not only can you help to grow your business and help to grow your clients' businesses, but you can help to find more opportunities than you could possibly think. So whether that's collaborating with people, whether that's friendships, whether it's amazing ways you can both support each other through competitions, through even making products together or running events together. by connecting with people and allowing people to get to see you and your face on Instagram stories, it all helps you to progress. So the first thing, the easiest thing as well, and we all like to start with an easy thing, is the best way to engage your customers is to be consistent and just to keep showing up. And this is one of these things, I think one of the clever marketing terms is low-hanging fruit. And this is it. We talk about all these amazing strategies, and we're going to talk through quite a few different ways to kind of help increase this engagement, to nurture this engagement. But if we don't have this foundation in place, we're only going to get little wins. Being consistent and showing up and keeping showing up is the way to actually get this going longer term. I often say it's like a TV program. So if you think about your Instagram stories like a television program, and again, one I talk about quite a lot is Downton Abbey. Love Downton Abbey. I know it's not on anymore, and I'm still coming to terms with that. But when it was on, I actively looked forward to that Sunday evening when Downton Abbey was on. I was invested in the characters. I wanted them to do well. I wanted, Lady Mary to be nice to Matthew, and all the things connected with it. If you don't watch Downton Abbey, you should. But whatever television program you're ever so slightly obsessed by, think about if you started watching it, you got invested in it, and then you had no idea when it was coming on again. And not just the end of a series, but it just stopped coming on. And then it would kind of appear randomly in the middle of a week at lunchtime, and you'd miss it. And then you didn't know when it was happening again. You're likely to be less invested in that. I know I most certainly would be. Than if it's something that you know is going to consistently happen, and you're going to be able to keep up with it, to get involved, to follow someone's journey. So one thing that I like to do with my own Instagram stories, and to see this in action, I've actually just put a picture of my dog standing on my kitchen table, which is a whole different story, which I didn't plan for today, but obviously Jan got the memo, is to have something running all the time in your stories. This can just be you sharing your grid posts up to stories. It doesn't have to be you doing a feature length talking production each day. It can just be you sharing a grid post up to stories. I often, and what I will do after this is I've got a podcast out today, so I'll do some stories about that today. But I like to have something running all of the time, really, in my Instagram stories. I would also encourage you to invite engagement. Ask people questions, and we're going to talk more about that later. But don't just go and preach. Encourage them to take an action. And if they do engage, if they send you a reaction, if they send you a question, if they do anything at all, make sure that you respond to that engagement. It's so, so important. And it's such an easy win. Again, I'm all for the easy wins. If people do comment, respond, if they share your story, if they share your post to their stories, thank them. Even if you've got a squillion, just double tap on the post to give that little heart, show that they enjoy, so show that you are grateful and that you enjoy their content. It's really important. If you start blanking people, it's like walking into a room saying, hello, how are you? And then if someone replies, you like turn around and walk away. It's not the way to engage. Even though it's online, the same rules of engagement still do apply. And also think about how you can build relationships through stories. It's not just a way to broadcast, it is a way to help develop bonds, to develop connections. Think about this all the time in the content you put out there. Think about how you can encourage people to speak back to you, how you can encourage everything that you want from stories. Something I talk about quite a lot, actually, is what I call the power of one on stories. And I know it's so easy to get obsessed with the number of people that watch your stories, the number of people that like you on Instagram. But I'm going to encourage you not to do that, even though it's hard, because not all followers are created equal. And I don't mean this in a negative sense. They just aren't. It's just the truth. If we're just looking for numbers, people would buy followers. And please do not, if you take anything from this, do not do that. Do not go buying followers. It won't help you long term. But if it's just the number, that's the way people go. But if it's from a business perspective, if you want to use stories to grow your brand, to deepen your connection with people, to allow you to engage and connect, you don't need to worry about the massive number. You need to worry about the individual connections that are happening as a result of your stories. Because some of your followers will lurk. They'll watch what you do, they'll like what you do, but they'll probably keep that inside because, that's what they're like. Some people will send you reactions and they will comment and say, that's amazing. they'll comment on your stories, and they'll get into a chat with you. Some people will cheerlead for you, and people will say, oh, you must check out such and such's stories. Some people will share your content, and some people are just incredibly well connected and will see your stories and say, oh, my friend would love that, and send your story to their mate who just happens to be high up somewhere and can get you a really good way in to somewhere that you're trying to get to. So it's not just to focus on those who can bring you the most value in that way. It's to focus on the individual connections, focus on the ones. And also from our own point of view, I think, well, I know from my point of view, that's much easier. Thinking about having to grow a following of a bajillion people is overwhelming. But if I just think about making those individual connections work, of adding value for those individual people, and they're actually the ones that are going to grow my business from a bottom line, from a financial point of view, it's much, much easier, and it works much, much better. So the summary of this part so far is engage, so important, so easy, so overlooked. Show up, even when you don't think anyone is there. I'm sure so many of us, I know I have had many instances where people have reached out to me on email or eventually sent me a DM and said, oh, I've been listening to your podcast forever and I was wondering if, or I love your content, I was wondering if, can you tell me more about? But I wouldn't know that these people were there because they haven't given me a clear signal that they're there. They haven't been connecting with me before. But if we think about just building up those touch points, we don't always see every time someone interacts with us. And that's something also to really keep in mind. Being consistent, so important, so overlooked, so easy for you to fix, and engage back. Again, another really important thing to do. So stories, what are you going to write about? What are you going to talk about in your stories? And the great thing is you can talk about whatever you like. Inside stories, there are loads of built-in features. There's clever things like boomerang and more basic stories, whether you do videos or whether you do just images. There's so much scope inside that app that you can make it your own. You can also use additional apps that can help create stories that are exactly on brand for you. You can do them about anything you like. The things that work really well in stories are the kind of sneak peeks, the behind the scenes, hence the hashtag BTS. Things that you wouldn't necessarily put on your grid posts, but add kind of depth to what you're doing, add depth to your business. It can also mean that perhaps these stories aren't your finest work. They aren't edited within an inch of their life. But that's the beauty of stories. They don't have to be. You can expand on a grid post. I said this is something that I do quite often. Today I will talk about my podcast and I'll talk about this as well. Because although I've included that on a grid post this morning, I want to go into more depth than just my character limit on Instagram stories. Also, I want to encourage people to download. I've got the swipe up feature on mine, so I'm going to also use stories to encourage people to go to different places. I'm going to say to them, swipe up for Apple Podcasts or Spotify or this, that, and the other. I'm going to encourage them to take an action through expanding on a grid post. You can also allow stories to introduce people behind your brand. This might be something that you integrate into your overall strategy, getting your content on Instagram, but it might be a really fun way to actually get to know the people behind the brand. Maybe you've got someone who works for you who is an absolute whiz at whatever they do, but they're also a dab hand in the kitchen, are incredible at making cakes. Or maybe the brands you work with have got people with hidden talents. The more we can promote this stuff and the more we can talk about it, the greater opportunities it gives us to connect with people who are watching us. Sneak peeks. This is a good one. I've actually just seen a client of mine do one today, so I'm very proud of her. But maybe you've got a new product coming out and you want to start building the hype, or maybe your client has, maybe there's a new service, or maybe if you're a catering business, you're creating something with a new product or a seasonal item or something like that. Think about how you can share bits of what you're doing to start building the hype, essentially, to start your pre-launch with whatever you're doing. Stories is such a great way to do that. It's a great way to show people part of the journey of a product without giving the whole game away. It's a really good way to do that. I've also seen some incredible time lapses on Instagram stories, which I love a time lapse. Anything like that is right up my street. So stories can be more rough and ready, that you can embrace the authenticity of it all. So that's why I'm saying just take your phone and just start having a go. It doesn't have to be perfectly edited. If you can do your best to make sure the light's on your side, which is generally facing more towards it, but experiment. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want to have it perfect, if that's if your brand is much more, it wouldn't work for it not to be perfectly edited and polished, there are also ways that you can just upload pre-recorded, pre-edited videos, or you can use additional apps to help you with that. And of course, you can apply filters if you really want to. Again, thinking about consistency, I would look to apply the same filters over and over again. So you're getting your brand, a bit more of your brand out there rather than going from one to another. I'd also think about perhaps only using filters that, not enhance, but perhaps rather than the dog ear ones that are like a sunset or something like that. But be careful with the filters that you choose if you do. Personally, I don't use filters because I have had too many occasions where I have been following people on Instagram. When I've met them in real life, they don't look the same. And I don't mean the dog ears at all, because I kind of don't expect those to be on people in real life. But more, they've used quite a lot of filters and they don't have a wrinkle or their hair's a different colour. And it always takes me a bit of time to get to know them. And if we're trying to connect with people, I think it's important that we think about the way that we are showing ourselves. We want to show a true likeness of ourselves. So stories can be rough and ready to embrace authenticity, easy for me to say, but you can also upload pre-recorded or edited videos. You have to do what's on brand for you. Something I do very regularly is when I walk the dog, I tend to do my Instagram stories. I haven't today because I went for a run and no one needs to see that. But it's very on brand for me to do that because I'm a rural brand. I work with a lot of equestrian, country and rural businesses. So for me to be in a field with a dog makes perfect sense. But you can find things that are on brand for you. Maybe it's your studio, your client's studio. And for an estate agent, maybe it is with houses. Think about the way that you can put it into context as well to add a little bit more there. Get your clients and also encourage your clients to get their clients, to get their face out there. As I said at the beginning, I know it's hard and I'm not coming to you from a place saying, well, I always found it really easy. I haven't. And I will still pull apart my appearance and look at those grey hairs that need fixing and think about whether I need to upgrade my moisturiser. But no one else sees what we see. And that's something I really want you to take away from this. Whilst we're there looking at all of our features, we're only on the screen for 15 seconds at a time if it's a video. And hopefully our content is so engaging and so captivating that that's what the people watching our stories are more interested in, way beyond our wrinkles and our grey hairs. We're our own biggest critics, but people connect with people. And if you're, a face-to-face business, if you're working in a shop, if you're doing something, people like to see you. Let them use social media to help enhance these connections rather than to put up barriers. And stories is such a great place to do that too. So talking about engagement, there are some tools we can use. If you're watching this on the computer live stream, you might want to grab your phone. If not, this will be available on replay, so you can have a look then. But there's some amazing tools inside Instagram that allow you to connect on a deeper level. So we have got the questions tab. So this can be used in so many different ways. You're generally, the ones that we talk about here that require more effort from the person, you're more likely to get a smaller response. But don't let that discourage you from trying, because sometimes even getting a smaller response, those responses can be incredibly valuable. Flipping back to the power of one right there. So ask the question. Ask what people would like to see from you. Ask what questions they'd like to ask your team members. Think about things that they are interested in. People can obviously reply to Instagram stories unless you've got that turned off. So that allows them to connect with you. But generally, if you can encourage that connection, if you can give essentially a call to action through asking a question, through the DM me sticker, which gives a clear call to action, they can be massively valuable too. We've obviously got other tools as well. So polls is a really, really easy one. And you will find that people will engage quite happily through that. Whether you just have a simple yes or no question, or whether you change it to different words or even different emojis, they're a fun way to talk about things. Thinking about the example of talking about members of your team, You know, Jane who makes amazing cakes. You can have a picture, and you can have, do you prefer chocolate or oh, I've never been caught short for a cake name before, carrot cake. And although you might think, well, what's this got to do with my brand? The thing is getting to know you as a brand, behind the brand, the people behind the brand that keep it ticking. And if we can give people these touch points with us, it does add massive value. It allows people to relax with us because they feel like they know us, because they do. And we can do that through our social. Quizzes can also be really, really good, because you can put different answers in there. I see a few people use this really effectively. They do a sort of a weekly quiz going through different bits about their brand or different things connected to their brand. If it's one of those questions where you want someone's opinion and you give them four options, there is only one right answer allegedly, but you can just put a note about that. And as I said earlier, with a question, you might get a smaller response, but it's a strong indicator of who your true fans really are. There's also the slider tool, which is quite fun. If you posted something that you think is lovely, you'll often find people will slide it right up to the happiest one, if that's the emoji you choose. You can also choose which emoji is on your slider. Again, a really fun way to get engagement and encourage people to engage, to train them to engage with you. There's also a really cool sticker, which is the Support Small Business sticker, which I do use quite a lot because of the small business I work with, but a lovely way to give people that you work with a shout out too. Another really, really good little tip for engagement is to encourage tagging. You can do this in different ways. Encourage them to tag you in the image if it's on their grid or feed post, because then you'll be notified in a separate tab. And that does make it easier to share up to your stories too. But also encourage them to tag you on stories, because that will appear in a different part and you can then easily share that. There are sometimes reasons why you can't share, like if they've got different privacy settings on their account, but generally it's a good idea. Also, encourage them to tag off Instagram. So in your email footer, maybe don't forget to tag us at. Maybe in your compliment slip that you put in with your deliveries, or that your clients put in with their deliveries, suggest that they use a specific hashtag on their stories. Think about ways to get them engaged. And when they do tag you, please thank them. If you want to encourage the tagging you, want to encourage this relevant content, get them tagging you. It could even be something that you set as a quick reply if you want to thank them privately on your direct messages. So do make sure that you do that. Because again, if we're trying to encourage engagement, when people do engage with us, we want to nurture that. We don't want to just blank them. And again, really easy win there. A double tap, thanks so much for sharing to your stories. Really easy, great content for you, and it shows them that you care. And I think this is the last point, is give what you want to get. If you want people to engage with you on your stories, engage with people on their stories. Look at what your followers are doing. Comment on their content. Respond and leave reactions to their stories. It won't take you that long, but it will mean the world to them. And it does, I have seen when I have engaged more, I get more engagement. So please think about doing that too. So now I would love you to hit me with your questions. Sorry about the squeakiest chair in the world. I hope that's helped, and I hope you've learned something from that, and I hope you've enjoyed it. But I would love to see some questions come in. If anyone has got anything they'd like to ask me, it can be as specific or as broad as you like. I would love to hear. I'll just give a quick wrap up. Hopefully I'll get some questions in. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Ria Freeman PR on Instagram. And if you fancy listening to a podcast today, I run the Small and Supercharged podcast over there. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and in all the normal places too. So do we have any questions? Hang on, let me get myself on the screen. There we go. Do we have any questions? I haven't got the
Sorry, I
feed
put myself
up.
on mute there. Thanks for that, Ria. That was a really good session.
Thank you.
Right, we have got quite a lot of comments in the app. A lot of people really enjoyed it. Somebody wants to know, what app do you use the most to help you create your Instagram stories?
I actually just do it through Instagram itself. I even subtitle my stories, but I actually just do it through using the text tool. There are some amazing apps out there. I've got some clients and friends that use different ones. I know Mojo's one that a friend of mine is really raving about at the moment. But I just tend to do it through stories. I find it much faster. And I don't do that. I don't do terribly clever things with my stories. I speak to the camera or I'll share my grid posts. But I just tend to use what's there.
Ruth Chappell wants to know about Reels. What do you think of it as a feature for giving brands better exposure?
I think it's brilliant. I think I'm a big fan of Reels, and at the moment that content is being really heavily prioritized. If you go down to your little magnifying glass, you're likely to see that Reels is right up there in a big way. So I personally really like it. I think people are getting, some people I know that I work with are getting quite kind of stressed about it, but I would say with any of these things, like crack on and have a go. It's a brilliant way to engage with people. It's a fun way to engage with people. You can share your reel up to your stories as well, so you can kind of keep it living on. But yeah, definitely have a go. Definitely give that a spin. I think it's brilliant.
Something actually I'd like to know, and Sabrina Brock has actually asked, can you schedule Instagram stories or do they always have to be live?
That's a good question. I believe through Creator Studio, there's a lot more scope there. I use Later for my scheduling, and it will like alert you. It will tell you to post a story. So it's not something that I do because I tend to do it in real time. But I don't think Later currently does it, but I do think that you can do it on Creator Studio. At least you can schedule it, but perhaps the auto post function isn't available on all the different platforms yet.
And Alice Wilcock has said something she's been trying to get her head around is tagging in somebody's story. Are you able to share it in your own story? Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So if someone tags you in their story, unless they've got, so with a business account, for example, you don't get music, which is really annoying, but you don't. So if I've been tagged in someone's story and they have got music on in the background, I'm unable to share that, which is annoying. But most of the time, people don't have music on, and that means I can just share to my story. And actually, inside Instagram, there's a built-in function to do that, which is brilliant. Unless they've got a private account or there are different things that won't allow you to, most of the time you absolutely can. And it's a really nice thing to do because you can thank the person, you can comment on their story that they've shared. And so, yeah, crack on with that, and definitely encourage people to tag you as well, especially if you're a brand or you're working with a brand. It's a brilliant source of user-generated content that you are sharing from the source as well. You're sharing it from their stories. So it's a really positive thing for them as well.
Brilliant. Marianne Avery says, what is your favourite engagement tool?
Probably polls, actually, because they're quick and you're likely to get a good response, and it's not too taxing on the brain for either you putting them out there or for other people engaging. In terms of, I did something a few weeks ago where I said I was recording a series of podcasts. Did anyone have any suggestions? And I got some really good suggestions through the questions tool. But for kind of fast engagement, that can be quite fun as well, I tend to default to polls if it's something, unless it's something really specific that I want people's opinions on and you can't fit that into a poll.
One other one here, actually got two on hashtags. So the first one, they're both actually from Caroline McShane. She says, your profile has hashtags. Many people advise against them. What are your thoughts? And then also she says, do you add hashtags to your stories on the screen or hidden? Do they actually work with showing your story in searches?
Cool. I do have hashtags. I have, I think we can kind of not over-analyze, but I think we've got to do what works for us. And to me, having the hashtags there doesn't seem to have had any negative impact. And a lot of the people I follow and a lot of the things I read are very positive about having hashtags in that place. Stories-wise, yes, I do use hashtags. I don't use them in every single story I do. And I do hide them as well. And I have seen, again, not all the time, because even if we do hashtag our stories, we can't guarantee that they're going to be featured in the hashtag story of that hashtag. I said hashtag a lot, but you've got a much greater chance. And I have seen real spikes in my amount of in my views on my stories when I have used specific hashtags and I have hidden them or they are actively there. And you can use up to 10 on an Instagram story. And again, I'm kind of the opinion of that if we are able to do it, which we are, and the point is it increases our reach, that's the idea behind it. It allows us to be more discoverable. Then I don't see why we shouldn't do it. If we're working within the framework of Instagram, we're not trying to cheat it or do anything, clever. We're working within the framework that we have been given. I do hide them if I think it's going to mess up the aesthetic, I'll be honest. And whether that's I shrink them down and colour match them to the background or shove a GIF over it. I have done both of those. Or if I'm writing about something, so if I'm kind of subtitling what I'm saying and I say podcast in there, for example, I'd put #podcast rather than just put it somewhere else.
Brilliant. Well, that's our time come to the end. But Ria, that has been an amazing session. And I think if you go and have a look at the comments and the Twitter chat, you'll see that lots of people have found this session really valuable. I just want to thank you for taking the time to come and speak with us and share the stage. Thank you, Ria.
Thank you very much. I've loved it. Thank you.